Hello, students. Welcome to Ganviar School of Education, Suresh Ganviar University. I'm Dr. Sonia Korbansal, and today I will be teaching you about Piaget's cognitive developmental theory in the subject Psychology of Teaching and Learning. So, my learning objective of today's class is to tell you about Piaget's cognitive developmental theory. You will be able to understand and grasp the different stages of Piaget's learning theory, how the students learn and how they develop. So I hope all of you will listen attentively and will understand at the end of the lecture that what are the Piaget's cognitive developmental theories importance and execution in real classroom teaching as well. So I hope you will understand it clearly. So let's start Piaget's cognitive developmental theory, students. First of all, let me introduce you with Jean Piaget, who was the propounder of this theory. Jean Piaget was born on 9th August 1896 and he died on September 16, 1980. Jean Piaget was a Swiss developmental psychologist who studied children in the early 20th century. His theory of intellectual or cognitive development, published in 1936, and is still used today in some branches of education and psychology. So, Jean Piaget is very popular for his cognitive developmental theory, and let's understand about his theory in detail. So, it's a theory of cognitive development, which is a comprehensive theory, students, and about the nature of development of human intelligence. How the human intelligence develops by the time duration by different stages. So, it is known as developmental stage theory also. So we will be studying different stages which are given by Jean Piaget in his cognitive developmental theory. So it deals with the nature of knowledge itself and how humans have come gradually to acquire it, construct it, and use it. So it is understanding on the basis of the nature of intelligence that Piaget says that reality is a dynamic system of continuous change. He argued that reality involves transformation and states. Transformations refer to all manners of changes that a thing or person can undergo. And states refers to the conditions of the appearances in which things or person can be found between transformations. So human intelligence is very adaptive as well. So there are two types of intelligence, namely operative intelligence and figurative intelligence. So this is how we are going to study in Piaget's developmental theory, that how the human intelligence develops by the time duration and how the condition or appearance which the things or person can be found between transformation of all the things person can undergo. So let's understand operative intelligence and figurative intelligence downwise. So first of all, operative intelligence, it involves all actions, overt or covert, undertaken in order to follow, recover, or anticipate the transformations of the objects or persons of interest. So main thing is here to notice that operative intelligence is focusing on all type of actions, how the actions are being done and undertaken in order to follow, recover, or anticipate in transformation. Then, secondly, we talk about figurative intelligence, and this is the most, more or less, static aspect of intelligence. So, here we talk about involving all means of representations used to retain in mind the states, successive forms, shapes, locations that intervene between the transformation. That is involving perception, imitations, mental imagery, drawing, and language. For example, students, if I say an apple, so you must be having a figure of apple, what you have seen in your primary books, a big apple with red color. So this is the figure that will come in your mind All right, so this comes to the figurative intelligence. And Piaget says that the nature of intelligence is that it involves it perception, imitation, mental imagery, and drawing language, as well as it involves operative intelligence. Clear, students? Now let's study further that Piaget believe that this process of understanding and change involves two basic functions. And basic functions are called assimilation and accommodation. I repeat, these are the important terms: assimilation and accommodation. So, by assimilation, we mean that it is the process of taking one's environment and new information and fitting it into pre existing cognitive schemas. So, accommodation, unlike assimilation, is the process of taking one's environment and new information and altering one's pre-existing schemas in order to fit into the new environment. Just in nutshell, try to understand, students, that when we are talking about learning new things, so how the child is learning, Piaget is talking about it. So first of all, he is giving two terms, that is assimilation and accommodation. So assimilation is something when you are actually getting something from your environment, maybe it is the information, and you are fitting it into your own existed ideas, thoughts which are already in your mind. Okay, so this is called assimilation, and this already pre-existing cognitive set of thoughts is called schema. So another thought is actually put into that, and it is becoming a new thought. So accommodation, you are actually giving your mind, your schema, a new information, and it is setting down gradually. So Piaget talks about some key concepts in the theory of cognitive development that we can all know one by one very clearly. First of all, it's about schema. Secondly, assimilation. Then thirdly, accommodation. Then adaptation. Then equilibrium. So these five concepts or key concepts are very important to understand, first of all, to understand further about Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So, students, there are four stages of Piaget's theory, and this is actually related to the different stages what we talk about during the development of any learner. So this is how the all important points, all important things are included in these four stages. But before that, I want to let you know about schema, assimilation, accommodation, and equilibrium in very short. So they are the variety of terms Piaget used in his theory to explain cognitive development and how it's achieved at different stages as well. So it's very important to know. First of all, when we talk about schema, so schema is a term he used to represent the building of blocks of knowledge. So you may think of schemas as different index cards inside the brain. So each one informs the individual on how to react to new information or situation. So this is schema. For example, you just take an example like a picture, a person visiting the grocery store to buy milk. And in this event of buying a milk, the schema is mentally stored pattern of behavior that can be applied to the situation. So the person remembers how to go through the aisles, find the milk, select the preferred kind, and then pay at the register counter. So whenever the person is tasked with getting milk, this particular script or schema is recalled from that memory. Another example, we can say that if a player is playing in the sports, the player is not need to remind again and again rules of the sports, because it's already been set into his mind that how this task will get completed. And now another important terms which we have seen earlier, so assimilation. So assimilation is using an existing schema and applying it to new situation or object or the new information what the person is about to learn. All right, students. So then next term I'm going to tell you that is accommodation, and it's changing approaches when an existing schema doesn't work in a particular situation. So accommodation is actually telling you to be more adjustable with the new kind of information. Then lastly we saw about equilibration or equilibrium. So this is the driving force that moves all development forward. Piaget didn't believe that development progressed steadily. Instead, it moved in leaps and bounds according to experiences. So, this is how these terms are very important to know. Now, we will understand the different stages of Piaget's, which is has given to us. So, let's understand about Piaget's stages of learning and development and how exactly Piaget's stages can be applied to the education. So, at the root, it's about recognizing the stage a child is currently in and catering to what developmental level coming on next level. So, it's very important for the teachers as well as for the parents to know about the developmental stages, that how the child is learning gradually about so many things. And not only this, teachers and parents can help by providing children with different kinds of experiences or ways to explore, experiment with their environments. So it's through these experiences that children may gain understanding of different concepts in a hands-on way. I hope you are understanding, students. For young children entering in preschool and kindergarten, it's very important for teachers and parents to understand. And Piaget's theory align more with play-based school programs or environments where kids are offered opportunities for trial and error and interaction with the real world. So Piaget's philosophy can be incorporated into any education programs. So, like for example, if I tell you the providing chances for trial and error, focus on the process of learning versus end result. So, how you are including the real life examples to complete the complex ideas among the children, like word problems in mathematics. So, it's the best example how the schema works gradually. All right, students. So, let's understand about the four different stages one by one. There are four stages. Number one, the sensory motor stage. Number two, or stage two, is called pre-operational stage. Number three, or stage three, is called concrete operational stage. Then number four is called formal operational stage. So now these are the four stages, and this is the nutshell or the gist of Piaget's theory. So Piaget's cognitive developmental stages is bifurcated into four parts, and first is sensory motor. And sensory motor is said to be from birth to 2 years old, and pre-operational stage, which is called the second stage also, this is existing from 2 years to 7 years old children. And then third stage deals with concrete operational terminology, and it is dealing with 7 to 11 years old children. And then fourth is dealing with formal operational terminology, and it is dealing with adolescent to adulthood people. So this is how four stages of Piaget's theories is well set, well classified in front of you. And now let's understand one by one. Now this is the stage one. Stage one is also called the sensory motor stage. And it is the stage, initiative stage, when the child takes birth. And it lasts to 2 years. So the child tries to make sense of the world during this stage. And as the name suggests, only senses and motor abilities are used to do so. Just imagine a newly born baby, students, and how he or she reacts, how the baby reacts when the baby is feeling hungry or thirsty. So this is the sensory motor. All the senses are actually being developed. all the five senses actually start working in a proper manner in the stage 1. So it continues till 2 years. And this is the sensory motor stage. The child utilizes innate behaviors to enhance this learning process, such as sucking, looking, grasping, crying, listening to the different voices that the parents make, and he develops his sensory uh, motor stages. Then the substages are as follows, which we can include in. So first of all, reflexes. Reflexes are made strong, or they are being developed in 0 to 1 month, in the first month. Then primary curricular circular actions are developed in 1 to 4 months. Then secondary circular reactions are there. Then coordination of secondary circular reactions are happening around it 8 to 12 months. Then tertiary curricular reactions is happening 12 to 18 months. Then symbolic or mental representation stage is actually reflected from 18 to 24 year of months. Now, how? Let's understand about reflexes. So 0 to 1 month is about reflexes. So child uses only innate reflexes. Many reflexes like reaching, grasping, sucking, all operating independently now. So these reflexes will have the sole function of keeping the child alive, and this is really very important. So in the first month, the child is learning all kind of initial sensory activities. So this is how it's been explained. Reflexes. Now primary circular reactions, and in this we this is the stage of primary circular reaction 1 to 4 months. So circular repetition is here. Primary center on infant's own body is being handled now. Child now has a fixation with its own body with regards to behavior. He gets control over his body gradually. The child is trying now. So they will perform actions repeatedly on themselves. So they also begin to refine reflexes here to from more complex versions of them, like thumb sucking. If they are seeking pleasure from that, then they will definitely going to repeat about it. Then 4 to 8 months is dealing about secondary or circular reactions. So child begins to take an interest in their environment, whatever is around, family members or any object, things. 4 to 8 months, in 4 to 8 months specifically, they notice that they can actually influence events in their world. So infant will not make conscious connections between what they do and the consequences. They merely observe that their actions have interesting effects. So this is how secondary circular reactions are developed in this stage 3 of 4 to 8 months. Now this substage of 4th 8 to 12 months is about coordination of secondary curricular circular reactions. So this circular reaction is dealing with child begins to engage in goal directed behavior. What the child wants is leading towards that. If the child wants to approach towards a certain object, or if the child wants a particular member of the family by a particular time. So this coordination of secondary circular reaction is developed in this stage, and the child begin to develop cause effect relationship in different persons, in different things, object. The child effectively knows that their behavior will have a certain consequences. At this stage, object permanence is acquired. Clear, students? So now next substage is stage 5th, and this is dealing with 12 to 18 months, and this is the stage of territory circular reactions. And at this stage, children like to use creativity and flexibility with their previous behaviors. Result of their experimentation often leads to different outcomes. Now, stage 6th. is dealing with 18 to 24 months. Symbolic mental representation is there, and at this stage the child develops symbolic thought and the ability to mentally represent objects in their head. So normally the child would need to resort to trial and error to achieve a desired effect. So child can plan to some extent and mentally construct the consequences of an action in their head. So predictions are not always accurate, but it's a step up from trial and error. Clear, students? Now let's proceed further. And this is the stage, substage 6, that is dealing with 18 to 24 months. Now, this is the sensory motor period that is culminating with the emergence of the symbolic functions. So, symbolic function is there. An idea or mental image is used to stand in for a perceptually absent object. So, when we actually tell the child, the person has come or someone is there, so the child looks around because the symbolic function is being developed. So trial and error problem solving does not need to enacted, but can undertaken through mental combination as well. Now, mental representation in children is object permanence. Object permanence is when objects exist without when out of sight. So this is the sensory motor stage now begins to develop. Even when we call the bottle, spoon, the child is actually framing the images in his mind. What is the bottle? What is the spoon? How does it look? So this is the mental representation is actually being started in the child. Now, see development of object of permanence, how this is. You just can see these pictures in front of you. And in the first picture, the child is looking at the toy. And in the second picture, the toy is being hidden. But the child is actually reacting on the toy's presence. Now, the next pictures are also related with that. That the child is actually making mental representation of the particular thing, and the child knows that the particular thing is here and there, and I can think about it. I hope it's very clear with these pictures that how the child of this age, 0 to 2 years, is now building up the concepts in his mind, and he is actually eventually developing all the concepts in his mind. How the object permanence is there, you just have a look in these pictures. In the first picture A, the child is having ball in his hands. In the picture B, the ball is actually sometimes coming here and there, and it is sometimes out of his sight also. And see, you can see the picture C, the child is smiling, but the ball is not in front of him. And where the ball is not there, the child is having some sort of expression as where the ball is, because the object permanence activity is strongly built up in his mind with mental presence. All right, I hope you are understanding with these pictures how the object permanence is achieved by the children at this stage. Now, deferred limitation is also there. That is simply the imitation of behavior a child has seen before. So if you are going to clap in front of child, the child is definitely going to do that, repeat that. He will try how to clap by joining two hands together. So deferred imitation occurs. And whatever the parents do in front of the child, they also do in the same way. So 0 to 2 years is the best year, are the best years when the child tries to copy. So imitation is there, not with so much perfection, but the child definitely starts with that. So imitation in infants, how the child is making the faces. You just have a look on that. If the elder person is showing the tongue, the child is also showing the tongue, and how it is opening the mouth, the child is also opening the mouth. And if it is a pout, the child is also trying to make the pout. So how imitation in infants is occurring at this stage? Isn't it very interesting, students? And as a prospective teacher, you must understand that this is the actually main idea behind understanding Piaget's developmental theory or the Piaget's stages of development, that how the child is learning and how the child is adapting himself to the different situations after taking birth. Now let's understand stage 2, that is pre-operational stage. Pre word is used here. So this prefix is already telling us that nothing is achieved at full form. So pre-operational stage is any procedure or pre-operatory thought, we can say that is any procedure for mentally acting on objectives, different thoughts, different ideas, things. The hallmark of the pre-operational stage is sparse and logically inadequate mental operations. You will not find any kind of permanency or any kind of perfection in this stage, but definitely you will see some symptoms that the child is showing some operating activity at this stage. All right, students. Now, pre-operational stage is dealing with many thoughts like child learns to use and to represent objects by images, words, and drawings. Child is able to form stable concepts as well as mental reasoning and magical beliefs as well. So child, however, is still not able to perform operations, tasks that the child can do mentally rather than physically. So now this time thinking is egocentric and child has difficulty taking the viewpoint of others. So it is now the child is learning to use and to represent objects of images, words, and drawings gradually. So there are two substages in this stage also. First is the symbolic functional stage, and then secondly, the intuitive thought substage. All right, students. Now, the symbolic function substage is occurring between about the stage ages of 2 and 7. During 2 to 4 years old, kids cannot yet manipulate and transform information in logical ways, but they now can think in images and symbols as well. So the child is able to formulate designs of objects that are not present. So although there is an advancement in progress, there are still limitations such as egocentrism and animism. So then the symbolic function of substage egocentrism occurs when a child is unable to distinguish between their own perspective and the another person's perspectives. And in this, children tend to pick their own view of what they see rather than the actual view shown to others. So they have their own views now. So, for example, is an experiment performed by Piaget and Babel in Hilda. Three views of mountain are shown and the child is asked what a traveling doll would see at the various angles. The child picks their own view compared to the actual view of the doll. Now, the symbolic function of the stage, you can see Piaget's view, child's view is different, Piaget's view is different. So, this is how symbolic function substage is working at this stage. Now, animism. What is animism? So, it is a belief that inanimate objects are capable of actions and have lifelike qualities. So, an example is a child believing that the sidewalk was matte and made them fall down. All right, students. Now, the intuitive thought substage, this occurs about the age of 4 and 7. Children tend to become more curious and ask many questions, begin the use of primitive reasoning as well. So there is an emergence in the interest of reasoning and wanting to know why things are the way they are. Piaget called it the intuitive substage because the children realize they have a vast amount of knowledge, but they are unaware of how they know it. So centration or conservation are both involved in preoperative thought. Now, this is Piaget's conservation task, how it is done. You see, this is A, B, C, and in the second picture, how A, B, C children tend to center focus upon one aspect of situation and not take into account others. The children are at this stage, pre-operational stage, which we are talking. So, pre-operational children tended to say there was more liquid in C as they focused on height. All right, students. So this is how conservation task is relating to them. So now this means that the child is, if looking at one thing, then his operational stage is actually looking at them. And by this point, the child is actually doing so and focusing upon one aspect of situation and not taking into account of other situation what is in front of him or it's being present. So it's really very important for a teacher or the parent to understand that what is the main focus of teaching that should be kept in front of children first of all. So look at the pictures carefully, and I hope you are understanding the conservation task, how it is. So now stage 3. Stage 3 is dealing with concrete operational stage. Now, what is the concrete operational stage, students? So, concrete operational stage is dealing with is 7 to 11 years old children, and it is characterized by appropriate use of logic. And during this stage, the child's thought processes become more mature and adult-like. So, important processes in concrete operational stages are following, which we can tell you. So, first of all, conservation, then decentering, then reversibility, seriation, then transitivity, classification, elimination of egocentrism that we have studied earlier, logic as well. Then important processes, let's understand how concrete operational stage is occurring. So first of all, conservation. So the understanding that thought and object's appearance changes, it still stays the same in quantity. Redistributing an object does not affect its mass, number, or volume. For example, a child understands that when you pour a liquid into different shaped glass, the amount of liquid stays the same. So, this is how conservation is dealing with this process. Now, then, decentering is another process, and in this child now takes into account multiple aspects of a problem to solve it. For example, the child will no longer perceive an exceptionally wide but short cup to contain less than a normally wide taller cup. Clear, students? So this is how decentering is here. Now let's talk about reversibility. So in this reversibility, the child now understands that numbers or objects can be changed or then returned to their original state as well. For example, during this stage, a child understands that his or her favorite ball that deflates is not gone and can be filled with air and put back into play again. And another example would be that the child realizes that a ball of clay once flattened can be made into ball of clay again. Then seriation. So the ability to sort objects is an order according to size, shape, or any other characteristics. For example, if given different shaded objects, they may make a color gradient. So this is the seriation that they will sort the objects in an order from 1 to higher order, or A to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, in this way. So So they will arrange it according to size, according to shape. This is smaller, this is small, smallest. So in this way, they will be serializing it. The next process that involves in concrete operational, that is transitivity. So transitivity, which refers to the ability to recognize relationship among various things in a serial order. For example, when told to put away his books according to height, the child recognizes that he starts with placing the tallest one on one end of the bookshelf and the shortest one ends up at the other end. So classification is here, the ability to name and identify sets of objects, and according to appearance, size, or other characteristics, including the idea that one set of objects can include another. Now, elimination of egocentrism is also one of the process in concrete operational system. So the ability to view things from another's perspective, even if they think incorrectly. Children in this stage can, however, only solve problems that apply to actual objects or events which are actually concrete in nature and not abstract concepts or hypothetical tasks. So they are more related to the concrete things. Understanding and knowing how to use full common sense has not been completely adapted yet. Now let's understand the stage 3, that is concrete operational stage. Now they start solving problems in a more logical fashion. So at this stage, the children can only solve problems that apply to concrete events or objects. And children in this stage commonly experience difficulties with figuring out logic in their heads. Now, children are able to incorporate inductive reasoning as well with them. And inductive reasoning, all of you know, that involves drawing inferences from observations in order to make a generalization. So this is the stage which is actually happening in this stage now. And then deductive reasoning is something that which involves using a generalized principle in order to try to predict the outcome of an event or an object. Now let's understand the milestones of the concrete operational stage in some points, students. So first of all, this is the stage where the ability to distinguish between their own thoughts and the thoughts of others is being developed now. And the increase in classification skills is also there. Ability to think logically about objects and events is also there. Ability to fluently perform mathematical problems in both addition and subtraction is also there. Then formal operations stage commences at around 11 years of age. So this is called puberty stage also, and it continues into adulthood. And this is the stage where individuals move beyond concrete experiences and begin to think abstractly, reason logically, and draw conclusions from the informal information available, as well as apply all these processes to hypothetical situations. Now, this is a stage where the individuals solve problems in a trial and error fashion. They do commit mistakes, and gradually, with their experiences, they learn also. So, adolescents begin to think more as a scientist thinks, devising plans to solve problems and systematically testing solutions as well of different situation is involving in this situation. Now let's understand stage 4, that is formal operational stage. Now at this stage, the learners use hypothetical deductive reasoning, which means that they develop hypotheses or best guesses also, and systematically deduce or conclude anything, which is the best path to follow in solving any situation. So higher order thinking skills are developed in this formal operational stage according to Piaget, and this is really very important stage as the hypothetically thinking is developed. Now during this stage, the adolescent is able to understand which thing as love shades of gray, logical proofs of values, During this stage, the young person begins to entertain possibilities for the future and is fascinated with what they can be. All right. Now, adolescent egocentrism governs the way that adolescents think about social matters and is the heightened self consciousness in them, as they are, which is reflected in their senses of personal uniqueness and invincibility. So, adolescent egocentrism can be dissected into two types of social thinking. First one is dealing with imaginary audience, and then second it is about personal fable. So imaginary audience involves attention getting a behavior, and personal fable it involves an adolescent sense of personal uniqueness plus invincibility. All right. Now, practical applications of this Piaget's theory is very well, and the students as well as parents and teachers can apply this. Parents can use Piaget's theory when deciding how to support what to buy in order to support their child's growth. Buying different things at different stages will lead them to a proper conclusion. And teachers can use this when discussing whether the syllabus subjects are suitable for the level of students or not. Teachers who work with children in both the pre-operational and the concrete operational levels of cognitive development should adopt suitable academic expectation with regard to children's cognitive developmental abilities as well. So the need for educators to individualize and adapt to appropriateness academic expectations appears to be most relevant for children at the first grade level. All right, students, I hope you are understanding this much. Now let's understand the strengths of Piaget's theory. What are the strengths? Why this theory is so important? So Piaget was an inspiration to many who came after and took up his ideas. Until now, we are understanding and we are in understanding the significance of Piaget's theory of developmental stages. And Piaget's ideas have generated a huge amount of research, which has increased our understanding of cognitive development as well. So Piaget's ideas have been a practical use in understanding and communicating with children, understanding them, teaching them, and practically in the field of education. And very specifically, when we are leading towards discovery learning, experiencing learning. So Piaget's theory is really very important to understand. Now, there are some weaknesses also, so let's understand. But as being prospective teachers, you have to focus on each and everything. So, progress to the formal operational stage is not guaranteed because somehow it is developing, and developing stage is cannot be called with perfectness. So we cannot guarantee that formal operation stage will be full developed or not. Moreover, Piaget failed to consider the effect that the social setting and culture may have on cognitive development. And Piaget's methods like observation and clinical interviews are more open to biased interpretation rather than other methods. So, because Piaget conducted the observation alone, data collected are based on his own subjective interpretations of events as well. So, these are some definitely some weaknesses, but apart from the small weaknesses, the Piaget's theory is a wonderful combination of learning something. It is actually telling you how the human intelligence develops, how the child learns, how the child grows into different stages. Moreover, Piaget underestimated the abilities of children because his tests were sometimes confusing or difficult to understand. So the concept of schema is incompatible with the theories of Brunner and Vygotsky as well. So behaviorism would also refute Piaget's schema theory because it cannot be directly observed as it is an internal process. How can you justify that the other learned thing is well adjusting with the new information? So this cannot be directly observed, and Piaget carried out his studies with a handful of participants only. So this sample is biased, and accordingly, the results of these studies cannot be generalized to children from different cultures, as it will be different from their learning styles, environment, parents, home, food culture, teaching culture. So everything is going to affect their learning styles. Now, there are some extensions of Piaget's theory in later stages like Kohlberg, Gillian, Eunice, and N. Nellis, and Parrot Claremont. And Vygotsky also done a good job in developmental stages of learning. Now, let's understand some MCQs, students. It's a quiz time. So, how did Piaget describe children? Option A, like little adventurers, like small explorers, like little philosophers, like small scientists. Yes, the correct answer is the bold one, that's like small scientist. Next question, which of the following statement is true? So according to Piaget, children A must complete each stage but in any order, can miss some stages but must meet the last one. C must complete all stages by the time they are 5. D must complete all the stages in the same order. So this is the correct answer, and it is true according to Piaget that children must complete all the stages in the same order. Next question is about Piaget's theory focuses on children developing what? A. Mental representations, language, cognitive schemas, theory of mind. And the correct answer is C, cognitive schemas. All right, students, I hope you are understanding it well. Then next question is leading towards Piaget's theory. Piaget's first stage occurs before school age. But which of the following is established at the end of this stage? A. Symbolic thought. B. Mental maps. C. Spatial awareness. D. None of these. And the correct answer is symbolic thought. So, these are some references, students, for your more study purpose. And I really believe that you are going to study in a more beautiful manner, and you will understand the concept of Piaget's theory in a very good way. So I hope, students, you have learned the Piaget's theory and understood its different stages. And I really believe that there are some criticism of Piaget's stages of learning, but even then, Piaget's theory is brilliant in its own form. And in particular, researchers in the 1960s and 70s argued that Piaget may have underestimated children's abilities by using confusing terms such as schema, assimilation, accommodation. But in other studies, children have been successful with demonstrating knowledge of certain concepts or skills when they were presented in a simpler way. So I hope you are understanding this Piaget's theory, which is expecting from a children from the children of a certain age, certain stage, to primarily be at the stage across the board with all tasks presented to them. So this is all about Piaget's developmental theory, and I really hope that you have understood about Piaget's theory. So students, see you in the next class. Till then, stay safe, stay happy, and keep learning. Thank you, students.